Many Redstoners thought that 1.21 would be one of the biggest updates that we've ever had to Redstone, but just a week later, those same Redstoners that were praising the update are now saying that a snapshot has completely ruined it. So, what happened? Well, the two snapshots in question are 23W45A, the one that we are currently in right now, and the second one being 23W46A, the one where the changes occurred. To make it easier to know what snapshot version we're in, the snapshot number here will be on the top of the screen. Right, so now we know the snapshots, but what actually changed in them? Well, according to the change logs, the copper bulb and the crafter, which were the two redstone components introduced in the previous snapshots, their timings got changed to be more consistent with other redstone components. In this video, we're going to be specifically talking about the copper bulb, so what did they actually change about it? Well, in 23W45A, they had a 1 game tick delay when you powered it, versus in 23W46A, they are instant, a lot like redstone dust, note blocks, or other redstone components. Okay, so now I hear you asking a lot of questions. What's a game tick? What's a tick in general? What's a redstone tick? And what the heck is all of this stuff that you've laid out in this world? Well, before we talk about the copper bulb, let's talk about how Minecraft measures time. So here we have this beautiful clock that I've made here, and this represents 1 second in Minecraft that is split among 20 game ticks. A game tick in Minecraft, basically anything can happen. Redstone can turn on, some leaves can update, world stuff can happen. Basically, the world updates 20 times per second, or 20 game ticks per second. Now, when you think of Minecraft and timing, you probably think of one thing, repeaters. So here we have a very basic 5 light setup, and if I hit this note block, they activate one after the other. And we have some repeaters. So we have a 1 tick repeater, a 2 tick repeater, 3 ticks, and 4 ticks, and then we have 5 ticks by combining a 4 tick and a 1 tick repeater. Well, now you may be asking, Crafty, why did you say tick instead of game tick? Well, that's because repeaters don't actually operate in game ticks, they operate in redstone ticks. So a 1 tick repeater is actually 2 game ticks, or about this long on our Minecraft clock. A 2 tick repeater is 4 game ticks, a 3 tick repeater is 6 game ticks, and a 4 tick repeater is 8 game ticks. Now, because this system is mostly used for redstone components, these are formally known as redstone ticks. And 1 redstone tick is equal to 2 game ticks. So if we basically mark out some redstone ticks along this clock over here, you can fit 10 redstone ticks in a second like this. Now, to avoid confusion, every time I say tick, I'm referring to a redstone tick, and every time I say game tick, I'm referring to a game tick. Now let's go back to the repeater example. Again, when I hit this note block, they will all go in order like that, and then they will all turn off in order like that. Now you may notice that we have a system on the other side. Well, that's because if you put copper bulbs, or really any redstone component, in between, as you can see, we can get timings that are in between redstone ticks. So on one side you have even game ticks, so 2 game ticks, 4 game ticks, 6 game ticks, 8 game ticks, etc. And on the other side you have odd game ticks, so 3 game ticks, 5 game ticks, 7 game ticks, 9 game ticks, etc. So if redstone components only give even game tick amounts, how do we get odd game tick amounts? Well, the 3 most popular ways to get odd game tick amounts are pistons, scaffolding, and leaves. Pistons are basically the only redstone component that actually have an odd game tick delay, so every piston with a redstone block here is 3 game ticks. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So this redstone dust over here will turn on after 15 game ticks. And using the tick freeze command, you can see this even better. So if we flick this lever and go tick step 14, and it'll go all the way there, and then we tick step 1 more time, and this redstone dust will activate after 15 game ticks. Now, the problem with pistons is that they may take 3 game ticks to extend, but they start retracting instantly, so this may take 15 game ticks to get there, but it will instantly turn off. So, okay, it's not consistent on when you turn it on and turn it off. Maybe we have some other methods. So the next one is scaffolding, which is this big clunky thing. So over here, we have 3 copper bulbs. So we have 1 on 1 tick, 1 on 2 ticks, and then we have 1 in the middle, which is a weird looking thing. And if we tick freeze again and hit this note block and step a few ticks forwards, and then we step 1 at a time. So tick step, the first bulb goes off, tick step again, the second bulb goes off, and tick step again, the third bulb goes off. So in terms of game ticks again, this first one takes 2 game ticks, the middle one takes 3 game ticks, and the last one takes 4 game ticks. So the way we're getting the odd game tick delay here is using scaffolding. So if we just flick this lever, as you can see, that trap door opens and the scaffolding shape changes, and that can actually be detected with an observer if you look on the very left of the screen. This scaffolding update takes 1 game tick, and a 1 tick observer takes 2 game ticks. So we have 2 game ticks plus another game tick, so we get a total of a 3 game tick delay. The last common way to get odd game tick delay is using leaves. So if I hit this note block, as you can see, it will go from left to right 1 game tick after the other. But the problem with leaves is that it has a limited range of only 6. As you can see, if we put any other leaves and we just check the number, this is a resource pack, this leaf is 1 block away, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but the other ones don't actually detect that there's a piece of wood in their vicinity. So once again, we can tick freeze and just hit this note block. So if we tick step 1 at a time, you can see that each leaf will start getting updated. So now this next one is updated, this next one is updated, and the last one is updated. And those updates can be detected again with an observer, so you can power stuff like this row of pistons in front of me. So again, to reiterate, redstoners do have a way to get odd game tick delays, however, it is really janky and it's not really officially supported. In fact, going back to this copper bulb example, the way we do it is that we have 1 line of redstone on just normal even game tick delay repeaters, and on the other side, we just offset it with 3 game ticks using the same scaffolding observer setup on this side. So if we do the same tick stepping method, as you can see, it will activate 1 game tick after the other because the scaffolding setup offsets the left side by 3 game ticks. Also, if you're enjoying this kind of slower, more explainy type of video, then subscribe because making these are sometimes really fun. So now we know about game ticks, we know about redstone ticks, or just normal ticks. So what about the copper bulb? Well, in this snapshot 23W45, the copper bulb takes 1 game tick to update. So if I just hit this and I hit this again, this redstone line will activate 3 game ticks later after this button. So again, good old tick freeze. I hit this button, we tick step once, the copper bulb will go on, we tick step a second time, and tick step a third time, and the redstone line comes on. Now, if you don't actually know what a copper bulb is, it is basically a 1 block T flip-flop. So basically, it turns this button into a lever, and it can be read by a comparator, and it outputs a signal strength of 15. So this redstone will go 15 blocks until it completely runs out of power, and then it can't go further. But this also serves as a very tiny 3 game tick delay. Remember, this is the setup we had to use before, a bunch of scaffolding and an observer. But now it can be done in a matter of just a couple blocks. And it doesn't just have to be 3 game ticks of delay. As you can see, we have a bunch of copper bulbs in a row like this, and they will all activate 1 game tick after the other. Basically, all we have is this copper bulb comparator setup, and then we're just putting repeaters in front of it. And again, you can chain these 1 game tick delays together, and you can get very smooth piston waves. This is about the smoothest you can get this row of pistons to fire. And we have 2 setups here, actually. So here is a 1 block high setup that you could probably slot into any redstone contraption. If I just fly over it, you can probably pause the video and copy it for yourself. And then over here, we have an alternating pattern between repeaters and redstone dust with copper bulbs under it, with observers that come off the repeaters and copper bulbs that will activate these pistons. Again, the way it works is these copper bulbs have a 1 game tick delay. So again, if we count, this is 2, 4, and then activates the pistons, and then this is 2, and then 3, and then 4, 5, activates the next piston, and then so on and so forth. Essentially, what adding a 1 game tick copper bulb does is it lets redstoners easily access all 20 game ticks of 1 Minecraft second without using janky pistons, janky scaffolding setups, and janky leaf chains. So what did they change in the next snapshot? So now we're here in 23W46A, where now the copper bulb isn't so cool anymore. As you can see, our clock is not as smooth, and it actually activates 2 copper bulbs at a time. If we go to this setup over here, same story, 2 copper bulbs at a time. And once again, we go to our piston chain. This one, you can see it even more, 2 pistons at a time. It is definitely not as smooth as the previous snapshot. So what the heck did they change? Well, if we freeze the game once again, we can clearly see that as soon as you push the button, the copper bulb goes on. It has no delay anymore, no more 1 game tick delay, it is now instant. So that means if I tick step this setup over here, this redstone dust will turn on 2 game ticks later. Now, Mojang's reasoning for this is to make it quote-unquote more consistent with other redstone components, but there's a difference between consistency and just having a 5th version of a block that we already have. We already have a note block and a hopper and a dropper and a dispenser, which can be detected by an observer instantly. We don't need yet another redstone component to act the exact same way. And what's even weirder is that they originally said this 1 game tick delay was intentional. So if it's not for consistency reasons, then then why did they make the copper bulb instant? Well, it's because of Bedrock. Yeah, it's because of Bedrock. There's no question it's because of Bedrock. See, on Bedrock Edition, redstone is kinda weird. So here we have a setup. We have a redstone torch, a comparator, a repeater, and an observer. These should all take 1 tick to turn on these pistons, right? Well, the observer goes way later, like so incredibly later. So much later, in fact, that if I put this repeater on not 1, not 2, but 3 ticks of delay, now those 2 will be synced. This observer takes 3 ticks or 6 game ticks to activate. Why are observers so slow? So in Bedrock, we are limited with this. We are only limited by even game tick delays. Even if we try a scaffolding setup like this, it's still gonna take the same amount of time as that left piston. There is no such thing as odd game tick delays on Bedrock. Basically on Bedrock, instead of having the full access of 20 game ticks per second, this is it. This is all they have. They have 10 game ticks they can use every second. Every other game tick they can't use. There is no odd game tick delay. So basically, this is how slow their redstone can be, which is often the reason a lot of people see that Bedrock redstone just feels slower, because it quite literally is 50% of the speed. So how can Mojang fix this, if they want to, that is? Well, here's the thing. The copper ball was changed to fit with Bedrock's clunky, even game tick delay redstone. The first thing they'd probably have to do is completely rework Bedrock redstone again to have odd and even game tick delays, which is a very hard thing to do, which is why it's way easier to just make the copper bulb fit within their system. So as much as they don't want to admit it's because of Bedrock, it's because of Bedrock. And if the trend of making Java components fit Bedrock's clunky redstone is followed, then who's to say that pistons won't have even game tick, or scaffolding, or wood, or there won't be any odd game tick delays in Java anymore? Who's to say we won't be limited with this version of the clock that we can access, instead of this full 20 game tick per second version, which gives us a lot more freedom? Remember what Agnes said in Minecraft Live this year, that this update was supposed to be for the tinkerers and explorers.
So for this year, it's time to focus more on like combat adventures and on tinkering.
Well, Agnes and the rest of Mojang team, here's the thing that a tinkerer, a certified redstoner, is telling you. Give us full access to all 20 game ticks in a second. We want to be able to have this much control and tinker, not this much control. This is limited, this is slow, and if this is where the future of redstone is headed, then the future of redstone might limit that tinkering that you guys have been championing so much. So Mojang, revert the copper bulb change. We want our 1 game tick delays back, or just fix the Bedrock system. Listen, you have a lot of options here. So I hope that all the reasons in this video was enough to actually convince you to actually see why this is such a bad change. And yeah, that's about it. Subscribe!